My name is Kate, and I am 30 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, and work as an interior designer at a boutique firm specializing in luxury homes. My life wasn't always complicated, but the past year has been a whirlwind I never imagined. A little over 2 years ago, I met Ethan, a 35-year-old entrepreneur who seemed to have everything a woman could ask for: charm, ambition, and a kind, supportive nature. We met at a gallery opening where I was showcasing my designs, and he was immediately drawn to the intricate details of my work. Our connection felt natural and instant, like two puzzle pieces clicking into place. Ethan swept me off my feet with grand gestures and genuine interest in my dreams and goals. In a matter of months, we were inseparable, sharing plans for the future and imagining a life full of love and success. He celebrated every achievement in my career and made me feel like I was capable of conquering the world. It wasn't long before we got married in a simple yet beautiful ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Our life together seemed perfect at first, like a fairy tale I didn't want to wake up from. But as I would later find out, fairy tales have a way of revealing hidden villains. The first year of our marriage was everything I had hoped for. Ethan was attentive, caring, and full of grand ideas for our future. We spent our weekends exploring Austin, trying new restaurants, and dreaming about the life we would build together. But life took an unexpected turn when my grandfather passed away. I had always been close to him, and losing him felt like a hole had been punched through my heart. Amid the grief, I learned he had left me his entire estate, valued at $10 million. It was an overwhelming amount of money, but to me, it wasn't just about the financial value. The estate was my family's legacy, a historic property that had been passed down for generations. I saw it as something to protect, not to exploit. Ethan, at first, seemed as supportive as ever. He consoled me during the funeral and even shared how proud he was of my family's accomplishments. "This is amazing, Kate," he said, his eyes lighting up as we walked through the sprawling estate. "We could preserve this for our children. It's incredible that your grandfather trusted you with this." I nodded, my heart full of both sadness and pride. "It's not just property," I said. "It's a piece of my family's history. I want to keep it safe for our future." At the time, I believed Ethan's enthusiasm was genuine, but in hindsight, there was something in his tone, a spark of something darker. I dismissed it, chalking it up to my grief clouding my thoughts. Little did I know, that moment marked the beginning of everything falling apart. A few months after inheriting the estate, I discovered I was pregnant. The news brought a mix of joy and nervous anticipation. Ethan seemed ecstatic at first, showering me with affection and speaking excitedly about becoming a father. For a while, it felt like we were back to the couple we had been during our early days, dreaming about a bright future together. But as my pregnancy progressed, Ethan's behavior began to shift. What once seemed like innocent curiosity about the estate turned into frequent and unsettling conversations about selling it. "Kate," he said one evening as we sat on the couch, his arm draped around my shoulders, "have you ever thought about what we could do with that money? $10 million could change our lives. We could invest, start a business, or even travel the world. Just think about the possibilities." I frowned, my hand instinctively moving to my growing belly. "Ethan, we've talked about this before. That estate isn't just about money. It's part of my family's history. I can't just sell it." His smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. Of course, he said, brushing off my concerns. I was just brainstorming." At first, I believed him, but as the weeks passed, the conversations became more frequent and more intense. He began dropping hints at dinner, during walks, and even while we prepared the nursery. "It's just sitting there," he'd say. "It could do so much more for us." Each time, I stood my ground. The estate wasn't just a financial asset to me. It was a symbol of my grandfather's legacy and the sacrifices my family had made. I wanted to preserve it for our child, just as my grandfather had intended. But Ethan's persistence didn't waver. Instead, it grew sharper, more pointed. His tone changed from casual curiosity to frustration, then to outright demands. The man who once supported my independence now seemed determined to strip me of my agency. As my pregnancy advanced, Ethan's demands became impossible to ignore. His casual suggestions had morphed into heated arguments, each more intense than the last. The man who once celebrated my independence now belittled my decisions, accusing me of being irrational and selfish. One evening, as I sat on the edge of our bed, rubbing my swollen belly, Ethan stood in the doorway, his arms crossed. "Kate," he began, his voice sharp, "you're being ridiculous. You're letting sentimentality get in the way of our future. That money could give our child everything: private schools, college funds, a better life." I looked up at him, exhaustion etched into my face. "Ethan, how many times do I have to explain this? It's not just money, it's a legacy. It's for our child, not for us to squander." His jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought he might leave the room. But instead, he stepped closer, his frustration boiling over. "You're being stubborn, Kate. It's like you don't even care about me or this family." I stood, my hands on my belly, trying to stay calm. "Don't turn this around on me. I care about this family, which is why I won't sell the estate. It's for our child's future." His eyes burned with anger as he pointed a finger at me. "You're going to regret this," he spat before storming out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sat back down, tears streaming down my face, the baby kicking inside me as if sensing my turmoil. The days that followed were no better. Ethan's demeanor grew colder, and his manipulative tactics escalated. He'd bring up the estate at every opportunity, turning even the simplest conversations into thinly veiled arguments. Each time I refused, he'd find new ways to undermine my resolve. One afternoon, as we shopped for baby supplies, he casually remarked, "Do you know how much easier this would be if we had the money from the estate? You're the one making things harder, Kate." I tried to ignore him, focusing on picking out onesies and blankets, but his words hung in the air like a dark cloud. It wasn't just the money he wanted, it was control, and every refusal seemed to push him closer to the edge. The final days of my pregnancy were a blur of physical discomfort and emotional exhaustion. My body felt heavier with each passing moment, and the labor pains had begun to come and go in waves, signaling the imminent arrival of our baby. But instead of offering me comfort or support, Ethan's demands grew sharper, his patience wearing thin. The breaking point came one night when the labor pains intensified, and I knew I needed to get to the hospital. I was sitting on the couch, clutching my swollen belly, every contraction making my breath hitch. Ethan stood in front of me, arms crossed, his expression as cold as the night air that seeped through the windows. "You're not going anywhere, Kate," he said, his voice devoid of any empathy. "Not unless you agree to sell the estate and transfer the money to me." I stared at him in disbelief, tears streaming down my face as pain racked my body. "Ethan, please," I begged, gasping for air. "I'm in labor. Our baby is coming. I need to get to the hospital." He didn't flinch, his gaze hard and unrelenting. "No, Kate, you don't get to call the shots anymore. This is my final offer. Sell the estate now, or you're on your own." The words struck me like a physical blow, cutting deeper than any of our previous arguments. My voice trembled as I tried to reason with him. "That money is for our child's future," I said, clutching my belly tighter. "How can you be so heartless? This isn't about us, it's about them." Ethan's face twisted with rage, his frustration boiling over. "Heartless?" he barked. "You're the one putting your pride above your family. Do you have any idea what that money could do for us? For me?" Before I could respond, he stormed off into the other room. I thought for a moment that he might cool off, but when he returned, he was holding a coarse rope in his hands. My heart sank as he glared at me with a dangerous intensity. "You need to learn your place," he hissed, dragging me up from the couch despite my protests. "If you won't listen, then I'll make you listen." Ethan's grip was firm as he dragged me outside into the cold night. The pain from my contractions intensified with every step, but he seemed unfazed, his single-minded obsession with control blinding him to my cries for mercy. "Ethan, please stop," I begged, my voice trembling. "This is insane. I need to go to the hospital. Our baby needs help." But my pleas fell on deaf ears. He pulled me to a large tree in the yard, his anger radiating in the darkness. Before I could protest further, he threw the rope over a low-hanging branch and tied it tightly around my wrists. The coarse fibers bit into my skin, and the pressure against my swollen belly was unbearable. Each movement sent waves of pain through my body. "You want to defy me?" he growled, his face inches from mine. "Let's see how long your stubbornness lasts." I struggled against the ropes, my breath coming in ragged gasps as another contraction racked my body. Tears blurred my vision, but Ethan showed no signs of relenting. Instead, he bent down, picked up a large stone, and held it in his hands, weighing it as if deciding how much force to use. "You think you can say no to me?" He spat, his voice trembling with rage. "You'll regret this, Kate." Before I could respond, he raised the stone high and brought it down on my head. Pain exploded like lightning across my skull, and blood trickled down my temple. My vision darkened, and I felt myself slipping into unconsciousness. When I awoke moments later, Ethan was pacing nearby, muttering angrily to himself about my defiance. I knew I had little time. If I didn't act quickly, this nightmare would only get worse. Summoning every ounce of strength, I began twisting my wrists against the rope. The fibers scraped against my skin, but desperation fueled me. The knot wasn't as tight as I'd feared, and with each movement, I felt it loosen. My contractions came in waves, each one more intense than the last, but I refused to let the pain stop me. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my hand slipped free. My heart pounded as I quickly untied my legs and lowered myself to the ground as quietly as I could. Ethan's back was still turned as he muttered, "You'll thank me one day for this." His words, dripping with malice, spurred me into action. I bolted into the darkness, my bare feet crunching against the cold ground. The cold night air stung my face as I ran through the darkness, branches scratching at my arms and legs. My body ached and my head throbbed from where Ethan had struck me, but I pushed forward, driven by the need to protect my unborn child. My contractions grew stronger, each one threatening to bring me to my knees, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't risk Ethan catching up to me. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled onto a quiet road. The sight of a distant pair of headlights brought a glimmer of hope. I waved my arms desperately, stepping into the car's path. The vehicle screeched to a halt, and a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a concerned expression, stepped out. "Oh my God," she gasped, taking in my disheveled state. "Are you okay? What happened?" Tears streamed down my face as I clutched my belly. "My husband," I managed to choke out, gasping for air. "He tried to kill me. Please, I need to get to the hospital." Without hesitation, she helped me into the passenger seat, her voice steady and reassuring. "You're safe now," she said, driving quickly toward the nearest hospital. "We'll get you and your baby the help you need." The hospital's bright lights felt overwhelming as I was rushed into the emergency room. Nurses and doctors swarmed around me, assessing my condition. The woman who had rescued me stayed long enough to give her information to the hospital staff, offering to speak to the authorities if needed. The doctors confirmed that while I had suffered a mild concussion and severe bruising, my baby was miraculously unharmed. The news brought me a wave of relief, but the physical and emotional pain still lingered. A nurse gently cleaned the wound on my head, while another asked if I wanted to contact the police. "Yes," I said firmly, my voice trembling but resolute. "I want to report my husband. He attacked me." Within an hour, 2 officers arrived. Sitting in a small hospital room, I recounted everything: Ethan's demands, his escalating anger, and how he had tied me to a tree and struck me with a stone. Every word felt like reliving the nightmare, but I knew it was necessary. The officers took detailed notes, their expressions grim as they listened. One of them, Officer Turner, reassured me. "We'll investigate this thoroughly, ma'am. You've been through enough. We'll make sure he faces justice." The night dragged on, but amidst all the chaos, the contractions intensified. The doctors informed me that I was in active labor and that my baby was on her way. Despite the trauma and exhaustion, I focused on the one thing that mattered most: bringing my child safely into the world. After hours of labor, my daughter was born. Holding her tiny, fragile body in my arms for the first time brought a flood of emotions: joy, relief, and a fierce determination to protect her from everything, especially Ethan. She was perfect, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness I had endured. The officers returned the next morning, ready to continue their investigation. I provided every detail I could remember, ensuring nothing was left out. They photographed my injuries, including the bruises on my wrists and the gash on my head. Officer Turner assured me they had enough to move forward. "We'll head to your home to collect more evidence," he said. "If your husband is there, he'll be arrested on the spot." Later that day, while I rested in the hospital with my newborn daughter, the officers called with an update. They had found the rope Ethan had used to tie me and the stone he had struck me with. Blood matching mine was still on the stone, and the rope had been left carelessly near the tree. These, along with the testimony of the woman who rescued me and the medical report, created an airtight case against Ethan. 2 days after the birth of my daughter, I received the news I had been waiting for: Ethan had been arrested. The police found him at home, attempting to act as if nothing had happened. According to Officer Turner, he initially denied everything, claiming I was overreacting and making things up. However, the physical evidence and the accounts of both the hospital staff and the woman who rescued me left no room for doubt. "He's in custody now," Officer Turner told me over the phone. "And with the evidence we have, the case against him is strong. We'll move forward with charges for assault, attempted coercion, and reckless endangerment." Hearing those words gave me a sense of relief I hadn't felt in weeks. Knowing Ethan could no longer harm me or my daughter was a victory, but I knew the fight wasn't over yet. While Ethan awaited trial, I took the next step in reclaiming my life. With the help of a lawyer provided by a local support group, I filed for divorce. I wanted nothing to do with Ethan, and I was determined to secure full custody of my daughter. My lawyer assured me that, given the circumstances, Ethan's actions would weigh heavily in my favor. The process was emotionally taxing, but I refused to let fear or fatigue stop me. I gathered all necessary documents, including medical records, police reports, and photographs of my injuries, to support my case. My lawyer also included evidence of Ethan's obsessive demands regarding the inheritance, painting a clear picture of his manipulation and abuse. The date of the trial arrived, and I walked into the courtroom with my lawyer by my side. Ethan sat at the defendant's table, his usual arrogance replaced by nervous tension. He avoided my gaze, but I made sure to look directly at him, determined to show him I was no longer afraid. The prosecutor presented the evidence with precision, laying out Ethan's actions step by step. My testimony was the hardest part, as I recounted the night he tied me to the tree, struck me with the stone, and left me to suffer. Tears welled up in my eyes as I spoke, but I didn't falter. This was my chance to ensure he faced the consequences of his actions. Ethan's lawyer attempted to discredit me, suggesting I had exaggerated the events. But the overwhelming evidence, medical reports, the blood-stained stone, and the rope proved otherwise. The testimony of the woman who rescued me and the police officers who investigated the scene solidified the case. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty. The judge didn't hold back in delivering Ethan's sentence. "For your calculated and cruel actions," she said, her tone firm and unyielding, "you are hereby sentenced to 20 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, you are fined $500,000 for the physical and emotional harm caused to your wife." I felt a wave of relief wash over me as the weight I had carried for so long was lifted. Ethan was escorted out of the courtroom, his face twisted in disbelief and anger. But none of that mattered anymore. Justice had been served. With Ethan out of my life, I focused on rebuilding. My divorce was finalized shortly after the trial, granting me full custody of my daughter. The $10 million inheritance remained untouched, safe for her future. I moved back to the estate, turning it into a sanctuary for myself and my child. The historic property became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that I had survived and would continue to thrive. Every day, as I watched my daughter grow, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The scars from my past would always remain, but they no longer defined me. I was freed, stronger than ever, and determined to create a life filled with love and safety. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Kate's story, a tale of resilience, courage, and justice. Her strength reminds us that no matter how dark or challenging life gets, there's always a way forward, and justice can prevail. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please take a moment to like this video and share your favorite part in the comments section below. Your feedback means the world to me and helps me bring more meaningful stories to you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful and inspiring stories like this one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We have so many incredible journeys to share with you. Thank you for being part of our storytelling family.